came from an era, if you was in my house, if you wasn't eating it, I wasn't picking you.
Are you listening to me?
Thank you for coming, Kevin. Well, I came to you, Pioneer Kevin, Ultra Omni. I appreciate you inviting me here to your now state of New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's real peaceful out here. Just from the conversation we've already had, I know you got a lot of insight and wisdom and history to share to the people that's watching. So, first of all, this is a funny question to ask you because you helped pioneer the scene, but give me the starts on Ballroom, or when did you get involved with Ballroom, or how did it even become what we know it is today?
Well, you know something, as far as the Ballroom, I actually went to my first ball with a very good friend of mine, may he rest in peace. His name was Michael Boone. And we grew up in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn. I was born in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Me and Larry Ebony and Richard Ebony and Michael Cabell Christian, who was a body child back then, and Michael Boone lived in Bushwick, which was my neighborhood. So Michael took me to a ball, and it was all drag ball. And that was like 1975, and I really didn't care for it because I guess maybe, well, it wasn't my thing, you know? So let's get off the balls for a minute. So my first ball was in 1975, and then I used to hang out at a club called Better Days, which sometimes they changed the name to Resurrection. That was on 49th Street and 8th Avenue in New York City. And you had Paris Dupree, who was Robert Isaac, who moved from Philadelphia to Brooklyn, New York. And Paris became a very good friend of mine, and others. But Paris always had this thing where he would be in the mirror posing and doing all this pivoting and all of this, like just stylish. And we wore Kangos, me, Paris, and David, who was David Ebony, then he was David Extravaganza, then he was David Ultima. We all wore the Kangos. That was our thing in the 70s. And Paris started the House of Dupree in 1975.
Was that the first house?
That's not the first house. The first house was the House of LaBeija, started and founded by Lottie. And even a lot of LaBeijas today don't even know who Lottie was or is. But Lottie started the house. She made Crystal the mother, the first mother of the house, in 1972.
So a lot of people that would say that Crystal was actually the founder would be incorrect?
Would be incorrect, because it was Lottie, Lottie. And Crystal, people get it confused because they see the film called The Queen, right. And that was not a ball, that was a pageant. Right. Even though there were drag balls during that time, in the 60s.
Describe the difference between a drag ball and ballroom as we know it now, today.
A drag ball, basically all the categories was for drag queens. You know, they had about 7 categories, 8 categories, and basically your femme queen categories, period. You know, pageants usually had one major category, which was later in ballroom called trilogy categories, because that one category you had to do 3 things. You know, it was just like Miss America. Sing, your talent, your swimsuit, your whatever.
Were balls more simpler back then? Because now you got like 50, 60 categories in one night.
You know what? Things have changed. Everything has changed. But if you really want to get into some real good stuff here, I'm gonna give you some stuff. We have the balls from the 18th century. Okay. Let's take the year 1776. Let's go back to Paris, France, when Queen Marie Antoinette and King Henry I think it was, I'm not sure, it was the 13th, or he was one of those numbers. They gave balls, and they were costume balls, and you had to entertain the king and queen. Then you had the judges. The judges were sitting on a panel. They were the dukes, the duchess, the lords, the nobles of the kingdom. You came in front of them and you had to entertain them. Back then, a chop could get you killed, you know, off with your head. You're not entertaining us. Or, you know, if they held up a goblet, like where they drank their wine, that meant you got a 10. If they didn't hold up their goblet, that meant you were chopped. So simultaneously at the same time in Paris, France, when these balls were going on, you had balls in Rome. You know, and you had the Romans doing the same thing. They were doing, some of them were, I guess, what we would consider court jesters, or we had, you know, people with costumes or outfits. They basically were to entertain the emperor and the king and all of them. Right. So then you had all of that. Then you had the balls of the 20s and the 30s in Harlem. You know, they weren't really gay, even though many of those people probably were a little extra talented. You had, well, they weren't labeled as gay events. They were just balls, costume balls. Who had the best outfit? You know, who was most debonair couple, you know, things of that nature. Then you had the drag balls of the 50s and the 60s.
Wait, going back to the 20s and the 30s.
And the 40s.
And the 40s. Were they mostly black people, or was it mixed?
It was mixed. It was mixed because in Harlem, you had the Cotton Club, you had a lot of places, I forgot, my mother actually went to them, to be honest with you. My mother, my aunts, all of them. And you know what, they did this dance that we called the hustle in the 70s, the Latin hustle, but they were calling it the Lindsay and all these other things where they threw each other around and danced. Very creative. Harlem was rich.
So how did back then, because you were still, I mean, Jim Crow didn't get abolished until like what, the mid-50s?
Well, you know what, I wasn't born. I was born in 1958.
Right.
And still here, and that's more than a blessing. Exactly. I've lost over 600 of my friends. And that's not just ballroom, that's clubs. But I'll tell you even more defined than that. The Queen was a movie of a pageant where Crystal, and on the credits it says Crystal from Manhattan. There was no LaBeija meant beauty. Crystal was not Crystal LaBeija until she became the mother in 1972 when the house was created. So I keep telling people over and over, they go, oh, well, the House of LaBeija has been here since 1968. It hasn't. It only started in 1972 when Lottie founded it. Okay, then right around after Lottie, you had Dorian Corey. You had the House of Corey. You had J. Dior around 73, 74. You had Duchess Wong. It was La Duchess Wong. A lot of people used to call it La Wong, but it was La Duchess, meaning the Duchess Wong. And she was back there. So those houses, 72, 73, 74, you had Corey, you had Wong.
Well, tell me about like Omni. Like, how did Omni get started?
We came in to be honest with you, I have to laugh. Larry and me lived a block apart from each other, and Richard lived 2 blocks. And Larry started the House of Banji. Now in Brooklyn and Harlem, we didn't have the words DL on the down low. We didn't have the words thugs. We're talking 1975, 76, 77, you had to be Banji. And Larry started the House of Banji in 1977, 78. And then later that year, him and Richard decided to start the House of Ebony, which they were my best friends. And of course, they wanted me to be Ebony. But I chose to start my own house, but I really didn't. I was kind of pushed into it. They wanted me to be Kevin Ivory because of the song Ebony and Ivory. That wasn't gonna work. Okay. Not Ivory.
Why you ain't like that?
Ivory,
Right.
Kevin Ivory.
Right.
The only thing I was using Ivory was soap. Okay. It just didn't move me. And then a friend of mine's who I partied with along with Paris and C-Hag, Tony Ebony, and David, and all of us who went out every Friday night. It was $5 to get in better days. You got 2 free drinks. Car fare was only 50 cents.
50 cents?
50 cents in New York. And we had breakfast specials afterwards. We went to a place called Shady Rest. We would walk from 49th Street and go down to 42nd Street. And this was a restaurant across the street from the D train, the D and the F, which was across from Bryant Park. And we would go in there and show out. You could get 2 eggs over easy, some kind of meat, sausage or bacon, toast, whatever, coffee for 75 cents. Now, if you were in better days and you spent your $5, you got your 2 free drink tickets. If you wanted another drink, you bought a rum and coke, it was 90 cents. 90 cents, okay? Life was good,
Okay.
all right? Getting back to the balls, and like when Omni came along, Thomas Dimples Baker, who used to dance for Alvin Ailey, and he was in some Broadway plays, he said, we're starting a house. And I'm like looking at him like, okay, I could be an Ebony. You know, and he's like, no, we're gonna start a house and you're gonna be the mother. And I said, I'm gonna be the mother. And so he looked in the dictionary and picked out the word Omni, because Omni meant all. And you got a question?
No, I was just like.
So you're gonna wonder when the Ultra came in. There's a story behind that. So Thomas pushed me, and the next thing you know, I was walking balls. But my first ball, when I went in 1975, it was all drag. I didn't really care for it. But when I went to Paris Dupree's ball in 1978, it was called April in Paris. And she gave it at a bar called, it was a big, huge bar, like a social club, called Mr. Soul's. And it was on 116th Street in Harlem. A lot of people don't know that. It was April in Paris by Paris Dupree. And you know, me and Paris hung out with each other. Paris, everybody used to always say, and they still say it to this day, was very mean. It wasn't that Paris was mean. If Paris didn't have a vibe where, Paris didn't trust people, you know, and for good reasons, you know. But I spent so much time with Paris. Like I used to buy Paris his Newport cigarettes and his Pepsi Colas, and when we would go to Philadelphia and we would split a 3-piece chicken, he would eat 1 piece of chicken, I'd eat the other, and then we split the 3rd one, you know. And this is one thing that I want the kids to understand. A lot of people, and I'm gonna say it like it is because this is how I feel. I don't put people down. Like there's things on Facebook saying, know your history, learn your history, and all of that's good. But there's one problem. How do you tell people to know your history or learn your history when you don't know it? Many of those, you know, and I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to get a story, get the whole story. Right. Don't do half. Like somebody tried me one year. We're talking like years later, 1990. Oh, Kevin, we heard that you were strung out on drugs, and my answer to them was, okay. And I did this on the microphone at a ball. Since I'm strung out on drugs, according to some, I'm also strung out on lobster. I'm strung out on my mother's hugs. I'm strung out on my lover's 9 inches. I'm strung out on silk sheets. Don't tell one side of the story, tell everything. Yeah. If you want to tell it all. And I don't know where you get the nerve to be concerned about me being strung out, because I've been smoking cigarettes since I was a teenager, and guess what? I've never asked not one of you for a match to light my cigarette. I asked you for nothing, and I owe you nothing. I can be proud, and there's a lot of people that have given balls and did people wrong. I've given every dime that I ever promised, and to this day, 2021, I'm actually going to do a fundraiser this year in October 2nd, which will be my 63rd birthday. My birthday is October 8th, but I'm doing this fundraiser for an agency in Staten Island or New York City, which is something I've always done. You know, one thing about Omni, it being all, we've always given back to this community. A lot of people don't often say that. Like, I was involved with the first fundraiser for AIDS in New York. That was the Love Ball with Chichi Valente, Suzanne Barsh, Madonna, Queen Latifah, Iman, Beverly Johnson, John Paul Gaultier, and all these people. And you know the beauty about it is I got a chance to sit with these people and meet them. And it's the same thing, like I said, like they'll tell you a story. Many of the kids today throw names around. Dorian, Pepper, Paris, but they didn't even really know them. Just like I could say I bought cigarettes, Newports, and Pepsi for Paris. I was at Avis's house when she used to make me hide her material because Pepper was ringing the bell so that Pepper couldn't see what she was going to put together. I went to doctors' offices, you know, with Pepper when she would get off the Bronx bus on Amsterdam Avenue in Harlem, well, Washington Heights. And Avis sold for my mother, you know? So it's not just, oh, Avis. It's not just Pepper. Doreen Corey always sat when she came to a ball at the Omni table. She'd be high as I don't know what, because, you know, she drank her liquor. I think I found out later on why she drank so much was because we used to go to Dorian's house and we used to play cards on the trunk that had the dead body in it. Yeah. So that was a real story? That's a real story. 1993. Dead body in there? No, we didn't know it was a dead body, but this is the thing. I never paid attention because I didn't go food shopping with her. Right. But somebody told me that she used to buy like the whole 2 shelves of baking soda. Every time she went to the supermarket, she had a stock in baking soda. And it was said in the newspaper that when they found the body inside the trunk, that it had been there. They determined it was there since 1973.
What year did they find it?
1993. She lived 20 years with that body. And when they went to pick up the bone, the skin just fell off. It was tenderized from all the years of the baking soda. We don't know if it was a lover that did her wrong. We don't know if it's somebody that tried to rob her. We don't know who it was. And nobody will never know. But she's somebody that got away with murder. Well, she didn't get away with it. She has to answer to our Heavenly Father. But, you know, like I said, don't just know your history and throw names around, because there's stories that go with these people. You know, we spent, you know, back in the days, like when Omni started in 79, back in the days, as a matter of fact, my anniversary is January 21st, 1979. And I'm going to tell you a little quick story about that. In 1979, January 21st is when Omni started. I had two members. Thomas is the one who went into, he's the co-founder of the house that went and got us the name Omni out the dictionary. Dedicated. He had two dogs that died after each other named Omni.
And where did the Ultra part come in?
We'll get to that. That's I'm gonna lead up to it.
Okay.
So the Omni was, his dogs were named Omni, and I didn't like neither one of them because they used to hiss at me and try to bite me. Then you had Fila Omni. They were so dedicated to Omni. Fila was the emperor of the house. He was sportswear, he was realness, he was, you know, many things. And he was a pain in the neck. He used to be like, everybody used to say, Kevin, could you please tell Fila to leave us alone? But anyway, they were so dedicated to Omni, much more than I was, that, listen to this story. January 21st was the Omni anniversary, 1979. Thomas died January 21st, 1999, on the Omni anniversary, and Fila died January 21st, 2000. They both were so dedicated to this house. They both died on the anniversary 1 year before. But I'm not saying it in a sad way. This is the joke behind it. So in 2001, okay, so you had 1999 and 2000. In 2001, I didn't go out the house on January 21st.
Okay.
I was like, you understand where I'm coming from?
Okay.
And I was working at the warehouse that night. Like I said, a lot of people may know that, you know, I'm an icon in the club world in New York City. You know, I hosted all the major parties, Black Pride, reunions, magazines, Black Inches, you name it. Kevin Omni's name was on the flyer. I also received an award for being New York City's #1 Black gay host, you know, which I'm very proud of. And in the ballroom, let's get back to, okay, so we started Omni in 1979. When we, in fact, got to 1988 was the year, Fila, who I just mentioned, was arguing with me because he said, you always making all the decisions and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. But what about Thomas, the co-founder? Right. So my attitude was, well, Thomas has walked 2 bulls. He has 2 trophies. He walked Butch Queen Up in Pumps, which he was one of the first to start the category, and he won Butch Queen First Time in Drag. He has his 2 trophies, and by that time I had 30. So if you feel like y'all are not using me as making decisions or whatever, I'll tell you what, you can have the House of Omni. And I left. I became Kevin Ultra. That was in 1989. And I have to give love to Stuart Ebony because I didn't go to the first 2 balls after I became Kevin Ultra. The Omnis went, and it was Kafele Omni and Thomas and Fila, and they walked Faces a House, which we won that category a couple of times before we did the split. So they walked and they got chopped, and Stuart was on the microphone and he said, you'll never be fab without Kevin. And people called me and said, Kevin, you should have seen them. And so since they couldn't keep it together, I gave them 6 months. I took the name Omni back and put it behind Ultra, and that's how we became Ultra Omni.
And y'all came back together.
We came back together. But I'm gonna tell you how it was done, what premise it was done under. Catch the premise. Jehovah God decided that Satan was challenging him, and him and his devils used to go back and forth from earth, having sex with people and everything, until in the Bible it says, rejoice ye heavens, but woe to earth because the devil has come down to you. So he's like, if you could turn everybody against me, that's what the challenge of life is supposed to be. So I took that same premise. Since you feel that you can do all this without me, then I'll step aside and leave and let you prove to me that you could do it. And it didn't take 6 months before I had to come back, so I wouldn't embarrass all the years, the 10 years that we had already. You know, a lot of things have happened. Like, you know, I look at some outstanding people, like when they ask me, you know, I just want to share this with people. They ask me, well, you came from the pioneering era, but what is it that makes you a pioneer? And I say that what makes me a pioneer is that I pioneered the scene from Harlem. I was the first one to give a ball in New York City in 1983 on my birthday, October 8th, 1983. At a place called Studio, beautiful place with glass mirrors all around. Doormen next on each side, each building, opening and closing doors. So I brought the balls from Harlem to Midtown, but I also changed the ball time. All the balls were at 5 a.m. and I worked in Wall Street.
5 a.m.
5 a.m. Yeah, people used to leave out of clubs and go to balls. And then some people would wake up like me.
What time would the ball be over if it started at?
Oh, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah. I used to wake up in Brooklyn with my alarm clock at 3:30 and have the grandfather of the house of Omni, Artie, come and pick me up. And we'd be leaving Brooklyn and going on the West Side Highway up to Harlem at 4:30 in the morning.
When did people sleep?
You slept Sunday, I guess.
I guess, right.
You know, but I slept beforehand. Because I would set my alarm clock. I'd have everything prepared so that when I wake up, shower, whatever, and then take my bags and I'm on my way. You know, my time in the balls, I used to get there between, sometime I wasn't going to race because I knew my category wasn't going to be until the second half. But it was like when I gave my first ball, I wanted a different audience because I was dealing with, I worked in Wall Street. All of my friends, we used to sell tickets back then to the balls. I'd sell tickets for Avis, Avis would sell tickets for me, Paris. This is the family structure we had back then. Like these kids today, I wouldn't trust giving 10 tickets to none of them. And I don't mean that in a nasty way. I'm just saying because people don't care. Back then, you gotta realize something. The reason why I said that, and let me clear this up, is because we had no choice. See, balls back then in New York, where it began, we only had like 7 balls a year. So if we didn't make those balls successful, the balls would have flopped and we would never have balls worldwide like we have now. So in order to support the balls, we had to sell tickets. I'd have Richard have 10 tickets of mine, Avis have 10 tickets of mine, Pepper have 10 tickets of mine. All the mothers and fathers had tickets. And that's where all the kids could go. Of course they paid at the door too, but guess what? Miss Avis, Richard, Larry, JD, none of them bought back any unsold tickets. We always sold our tickets. And that's what kept the balls going. So if it snowed and only 30 people showed up at the balls, you still got your money. Right. You know, we were more protected, but we had more camaraderie, more togetherness. Like, I didn't have to like you, but we was coming to your ball because that was the only way it was gonna work. Because
it was more respect between
respect and the interest in making the balls grow. And when they started to grow out the confines of New York City, like New Jersey, when they started having their balls, I'm gonna say 1986, I know that there was an award, the first awards ball in New Jersey by Hakeem Jordan, and that was in 1986. I actually got an award for that. The first Hall of Fame. I got one of the first Hall of Fames in Ballroom, period. And that was produced and created by Richard Ebony. Founder Richard Ebony. As a matter of fact, I have my award on my website that I'll never ever, it took me a long time to find. It was in 1984. Richard gave me the first Hall of Fame award. The second time I was in the Hall of Fame was in 1995 by Jack and Andre Mizrahi. The third time I was in the Hall of Fame, I got the first Hall of Fame award on the West Coast ever. When they started the West Coast Hall of Fame award, it was me and JJ Rodeo. We were the first. So I feel good about that. I'm also the first East Coast person to go to the West Coast and win face. And I didn't go to walk. Some child, I'm going to say the name, his name was, oh God, what is his name? I'm seeing his face, it'll come back to me. It starts with a K. He threw shade. I was sitting on the runway and he threw shade and did like this and everybody went, ooh. So I got up and I served him real quick. Started with a K, wasn't chaos. It's gonna come to me. But I was also the first to win an East Coast trophy. I mean, first to win in the West Coast and for face, and the first to win a trophy in the Midwest for the East Coast.
So one thing I want to know is understanding, because you've been in Ballroom, I mean, pretty much since the beginning of the Ballroom that we know today, right?
Pretty much.
Pretty much, or at least from
well, when I started, that's when basically the male category started.
Yeah, you go, like the Ballroom that we know, like when it migrated from the drag balls into the Ballroom that we know and love today.
Yeah.
So our community, like specifically black, gay men, black and trans, all that put together, we done been through so much as far as like the crack epidemic, the AIDS epidemic. Now like it seems like everybody is out here doing meth. What effects do you think those things had on the ballroom scene, if any, and which of those do you think had the most effect on our people?
You know, I'm going back in my mind, like, you know, remember, I come from, when I went to my first event was in 1973, wasn't a ball or anything, but it was a gay event, and it was, they called themselves, God, I'm having a brain freeze. It'll come back to me. But I went to they were showgirls. And they did these vaudeville acts. And it was like places back then where you bought your own brown bag. The first place I went to in 1973 that was like that was the Newcomer's Manor. That was the name of it. Yeah, meaning you bought your food, you bought your alcohol, whatever, you know. Because they gave them in halls, Muslim halls.
Where they didn't sell liquor and stuff like that?
No, they didn't sell liquor. You bought your own liquor. Right. And, you know, it was also during the time there was a group called the Fabulous Fakes. And they used to do the Apollo. And then you had, I don't know why I can't remember their names, but it'll come back to me. I'll have to put it in a comment or something. But in the 70s, it was carefree. It was all that. Then you had, in 1985, people really dying.
And what do you mean by carefree in the 70s?
It was carefree. We didn't have HIV. We didn't have AIDS. The worst thing you could possibly get was a STD. Right. And it really wasn't that bad as far as STDs were concerned. I'm sure I never experienced it.
What did you think HIV came from? Like,
you know, all I know is I lost over 600 friends to AIDS. And when I look at the fact that I'm 62, going on 63 this October, and I'm still here, I know Jehovah's blessed me. I give it all to my moms. You know, I had my moms for 62 years. I'm without her after 1 year now. My grandmother was 98. I was 30 when she died. All of my aunts, from Aunt Mary being 100, Aunt Nellie being 95, Uncle John being 92, and Uncle Fred being, you know, and then I got Aunt Evelyn still alive at 94. Those were my mentors. Right. Those were the nurturing people that was in my life. They were always there. And then I have my older sister who's 11 years older than me, and then I have my brother who's 6 years older. Everybody is so close, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm just glad, I thank Jehovah that I came from a family that when I told my mother, or tried to tell my mother that what my lifestyle was, she told me. And I was only 14. So since 14, I've been loved. She's come to all of my events. She came to the Omni picnics. When I look at HIV and AIDS rearing its ugly head, some people said it was a curse, you know, to the homosexuals. It started changing. Like, I was legendary for this during this time. I was legendary for going to the club better days, and when I get out the limo or when I got out the car, 4 or 5 straight boys were with me. I was always the one who brought the straight boys to the club. Miss Paris and all them, oh, you know that's Kevin Omni and his entourage. But they were always like, it was okay. At my first ball in 1983, I had about, let's just say, 300 people. And out of the 300 people, 100 of them were straight.
What made straight people so comfortable with coming?
Well, you know something, back then, girls wanted to be with the gay guys because the gay guys taught them how to dress, how to put on makeup. The guys wanted to be with the gay guys because if they didn't want to have them on the hush, they knew that they'd be around them, they'd get a girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? Because they saw the girls flocking. Like, I always had girls with me too, because in the 70s I was on a dance show and I used to teach all the females in the neighborhood at the block parties how to hustle. You know, throw them up in the air, do splits, all of that, you know. And I used to have them joking with me saying, oh, Kevin, can we have your autograph? You know, and stuff like that. But all through my college days, the first year of my college, which was September 1976, in order for me to pay for books and have extra money to eat, I used to go to every hustling contest there was in Brooklyn. And I used to win a lot of hustling contests. Back then, you got $50. You know what $50 could get you? Man, and when I was going to college, we could get a cheeseburger, French fries, and a drink was $1.25. You know what I'm saying? In school on campus. So getting back to how things changed, when we were in an environment that was HIV and AIDS free, everybody wanted to be with everybody. There was no, as long as you didn't look out of the way. When I mean out of the way, I don't think, they weren't accepting drag queens. Drag queens had a way to go.
Okay.
Well, listen, if you came out of a bar in drag in the late 60s, the early 70s, you got arrested. What? Yeah, you got arrested. If you did a show and you were doing a show in drag, you got to remember the Stonewall riot.
Right.
If you came out that and you had your chest and your wig on and everything, you was going to jail. I don't know what the name of the charge was. I think it was called impersonation. You got arrested for that.
Were there people that were maybe like could fly under the radar, or was drag back then?
No, drag back then. No, they listen. The girls, when they started really looking good to me, I'll give you like Miss Crystal. Miss Crystal was one of the first to get the most expensive surgery of that time. We're talking about people like Miss Crystal flew to Australia. You know, when the girls that had money, they were getting German moans from Germany. They call them the German moans for short. We're not talking about the girls that got the botch jobs that just wanted to get some softness to them and they got moans here in New York City or what have you. But the girls that really were looking like real and starting to look amazing, like Crystal, Miss Gigi, and all them girls, and Miss Reed and them, baby. First of all, Miss Reed was one of my good friends. Her name was Anthony Reed, and we call her Anthony Tony Reed, and she's the only one in history that has won face as a butch queen, grand prize, and face as a femme queen. There's nobody else. She won both face butch queen and femme queen. Nobody else, and we're talking from the 70s to the 80s. And we're in 2021 and nobody has done that yet. So, and one thing I was saying the other day was, people used to talk about face, and Miss Reed always said, you got to have a canvas in order to paint, because the kids go into this makeup, painted, whatever. And I told them, I said, you have to have a canvas in order to paint, because if you don't have a canvas, then there's no need to paint, because you still don't have face. But that was Reed's line. My line was, as my contribution to the face category is like, everybody that talks about face is always the kids that don't walk. They always say, oh, she don't have face, or she got on makeup. If you weren't in the dressing room with the person, you don't know what they got. You call this person wash face, you don't know what they added on. People do whatever they're gonna do. But my thing is, if you paint a brick red, right? Let's get some paint. Or you paint a brick blue, right? Or if you paint a brick green, it's still a brick.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what you're painting. Right. Okay? So, and I'm just saying that for all the kids that's out there that's critical of whose face and this, that, and other, unless you can get on the floor, please be quiet. And if you were in the dressing room with whoever you claim was wash face, and you saw that they didn't put on any makeup, then you can speak. 99.9% you were not with that person when they left their house or anything to know what they did or didn't do. And that's not being mean, that's just clarifying something.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, and like when Miss Reed did that and I came up with the painted colored brick thing, I was like, that should hold them for a while. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people don't know this either. The House of Ebony, I pride myself on the House of Ebony because that's really my family. When they gave their first ball, and you know that's a realness house, I won grand prize for realness at the very first Ebony ball. And the second ball, they honored me, not for realness, because I got some coins at that ball. But there was a member named Jimmy Ebony who was a face child that accidentally drove his car into the pier and died before the Ebony first ball. He died that August, their ball was that September 1982. And when I won, I dedicated my trophy to him. I kept the coin still. The next year, they had a category called, on the Ebony flyer, it was House of Ebony Scandal Part 2, 1983, September, and the category was called Best Man, which back then was Best Dress. And it said what they were looking for was a Kevin Omni look. You know, so back then, when you served or turned it, the kids would put your name on a flyer as an example to what the category was supposed to be.
Basically, like, to honor you.
Yeah, and not only that, like the categories for face. You know, when you always saw a flyer, when the category was called, like, for instance, at Miss Pepper's last ball before she passed away, was at the YMCA in 2000. And the category read, From One Century to the Next, Everlasting Forever Face. And it was calling me, Kevin Omni, Erskine Christian, Michael Dupree, Michael Princess, Stuart Ebony, Brian Omni, Whitney Mugler. Those are the names that always, well, Whitney came after us. He's a generation after us. But prior to that, you'd always see every flyer for the face children calling us. Just like you would see the flyers for executives. Since I started the category with William Dupree, our battles were so fierce that they had a rhyme going on. This is the category, high fashion executive evening wear. This is the category we wanted to see Kevin Omni versus William Dupree. And they would make us battle.
Yeah, and I see that, like, from time to time on flyers today. So that's really kind of like an homage to back in the day.
Back in the day. And you want to know something? The very first person, I'm going to make this bold statement. I'm not going to say, I'm going to make a bold statement right now, 100%. I believe out of Ballroom, I was the first one to ever be deemed. I was deemed not a deeming. It was a deeming, but it wasn't done like it is today. William Dupree, in May of 1984, gave a ball. It was William Dupree and Michael Dupree. And it was at the Uptown Social Club on 145th Street. They gave their balls in May. See, back then we had structure. September was the Ebony Ball. October was the Omni Ball. November was Avis Pendava's ball. Either December or January was Paris is Burning. Then the month of March was up for grabs. It was either Duchess Ebony or Robbie St. Laurent. Then when you got to May, it was William Dupree and Michael Dupree. But when William and Michael wasn't given, it was Michael Princess and Andre Christian. And then in June or July or August was Miss Dorian, Corey, and Pepper. So this went on for years. You already knew this ball was gonna happen, that ball was gonna happen. You know, I said that to make a point, and then I lost touch with what I was going at.
But let me ask you this question, because you've described a lot of categories that have like changed over time. Are there any categories that have like evolved into a different type of category that you really don't like? You know what I mean? Like maybe say, like how you said, like executive realness was originally this, and then it changed into something completely different. Are there any categories that you seen evolve and you was just like, I don't really feel that?
You know something, and I came right back to what I was thinking. To say that my time with walking high fashion executive, and then we had a category called traveling exec. Then me and William would battle with that and others. And then we had the category, we created legendary exec. So me and William both were the first two to become legendary executives. Right. Now that category today, I don't say that there's anything that I don't like about it. I don't say that there's not anything that I really don't like about any of the categories today. I like them all. But a person would have to understand from my point of view, I watched these categories grow, but at the same time, I watched my era do it, then those kids died. Then the kids came behind my era, they died. Then the kids came behind that era, they died. I think it's not that I don't like the categories, it's just that they don't interest me to be excited or enthusiastic, only because I've seen so many generations come and die. So like when people ask me, and I had to come up with this scenario. Oh, Kevin, we want you to judge the ball and this and another. And I asked him, how much you paying me? Because for me to sit and watch the same thing that I've seen, it's like, I want to, give me a gun and let me shoot my head.
Do you even watch ball clips?
Oh, I do. Okay. I watch certain balls, like, I watch the Detroit Awards ball. And I find Detroit to be interesting.
Have you ever been to Detroit?
Yes, we gave the 22nd Omni anniversary in Detroit, 2002. Okay. And the theme was a castle, Sir Lancelot. They even built this thing where you walk through like it's a drawbridge, and on every table there was a bowl with a goldfish in it. And we made so much fun at the end when we were cleaning up. I would tell them, because I had a member, I won't say his name, but I said, no, don't listen. I said, do not be upset, but he's eating all the goldfish. And we were laughing and falling down. He was like, what are y'all laughing at? And we said nothing, you know, but I told everybody, I said, seriously, he's really hungry. He's been eating. And people believe me because I did it with a serious attitude. And you know I was just lying, right? But yeah, and then Detroit too.
I'm from Detroit, so be very
No. I love Detroit. Okay. So we gave as a matter of fact, we had the Omni Hotel. We had like 6 or 8 rooms. And the ball was given by little short Andre from Detroit. I think somebody threw lye in his face or something. He was a little light skinned, like my complexion. He was real short, yeah. He's the one who actually put it all together. And then we had Taz Omni from the West Coast that came, and then I was there. I have the video. It's really, and you know something, I need
describe Detroit's ballroom back then.
Okay, and it was given at the Post, and that was 2002, and I enjoyed myself. And even though they had a lot of problems with Detroit before that, the Omni Ball there was a success. We had everybody from Indiana, California, we had New York. They were having, like, I remember one ball where I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the House of Extravaganza. Well, no, I think that happened to Extravaganza twice. It happened to them twice where they were chased to the bus. People were beating them in the head, and they pulled the bus driver off the bus and beat him up. you know, he was driving back to New York.
Why did that happen?
Somebody read somebody or disrespected one of the judges. No, I think it happened twice, but that time it was Chicago. Somebody disrespected the judge and the judge wasn't having it, and the judge got off the panel and decided to turn them, and so did the members.
Right.
What you call it? So getting back to that 1984, with me being called, William Dupree got on the microphone and said, this person can't be nothing but a legend because he's won over me. Which, i.e., he's calling himself a legend and calling me a legend. Now catch the shade. I didn't use the word legendary Kevin Omni until 1989. 5 years later. I gave my first ball in not my first ball in 83 or 84 or 82. My ball in 1989 was given at Trax, New York. It was the first ball that themed Legends, Statements, and Stars Part 1. I have to continuously teach the kids because there is a video where Jack and Kenny Felder Ebony are saying that he started Legends, Statements, and Stars, which we have to clarify. He started calling people up, but the term came from me. By the time he started in 1993, I had already given Legends, Statements, and Stars Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, and Part 4. So, and so I pioneered the term Legends, Statements, and Stars. I also pioneered the term Lifetime Achievers, Icons, Legends, Statements, and Stars Status Ball Part 1 in 2003, and I went all the way to Part 5, which was in Brooklyn in 2016, and I stopped. So, but I did give 10 Legend Statements and Stars, Part 1 to Part 10.
How do you feel about the Midwest scene in general?
Well, you know, when I came to the Midwest, you have... Okay, so let's just finish this up and then get to the Midwest. The icon, I mean, for William to call me a legend, and then I finally use it at the Trax Ball, Legend Statements and Stars, the legendary Kevin Omni presents. Prior to that, if you hit the floor, whether you were William Dupree, whether you were Larry Ebony, whether you were Richard Ebony, Paris Dupree, people knew who you were. People in the Midwest knew I was Kevin Omni before I even came for my first time. The first ball that I walked in Chicago was in 1993. I sat all of them down for face, and I won masculine face at Aaron Enigma's ball. None of those judges knew me, because these were judges that weren't even ballroom judges that Aaron picked. So I felt my win was all of that. It's the same thing when I went to California. Why did this child come down the runway throwing shade at me for a face category when I wasn't even walking? Obviously, bitch, you knew who I was and you challenged me, and I got up, and guess what? His name was Chaos. It was Chaos.
Well, I don't know how it was back then, but
Well, that was in 2001.
Okay. Well, now in today's day and age, we got the internet. So it's like everybody from everywhere is watching. I even look at, where people are watching my YouTube, and it's like, there's a lot of people around the world.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? The House of Omni, I had the first European chapter in 1994. And I was very proud of them. Now, what happened was Stephen, who was the father, he died. He came to the United States to live after he started the chapter there, and he wound up leaving New York and going down to Atlanta. It's a story behind it, but that's one that'll be kept, underneath the rug. But he wound up dying, and the mother of the house, her name was LaFleur, and she was the curator of the most famous museum in Paris called La Louvre. So the mother was fab, and the father was fab, and there was one member named Gio who's still in the ballroom scene, but he's not, I don't know what house he's in or this, that, and other. But yeah, I had a Paris, France chapter in 1994 in Paris. And matter of fact, a lot happened in 94, just like we had the Macayella dip that Mystery Dior, Mysterious Dior, bought into the ball community. And I remember I didn't have that category at my Mark Ballroom ball, which was in 1994, Legend Statements and Stars Part 4, but I had it for the first time ever in 1995.
Have you ever walked performance category?
No. I only perform when it comes down to I battle for face, but that's the extent of it, you know. Well, listen, I've won Best Man about 10 times. They had the first Legends Ball in New York City in 1984. And Erskine told me, oh, you can't walk this, you're not walking Best Man. You can open the category. So I opened the category at the very first Legends Ball.
What does that mean, open the category?
I went out and this is what they should try to, you know, try to bring.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Because the Best Man, Best Dress was supposed to be for the heterosexuals.
The heterosexual?
Yes. See, that was another thing. Back in my time, Best Dressed Man and Best Dressed Woman were for heterosexuals.
Do you think heterosexuals have a place in today's ballroom, or do you think?
No. I think that the average female is either a lesbian, more likely a lesbian, except for the straight women that love their brothers and sisters. Right. Like my sisters would come to the ball.
What about heterosexual black men?
A straight man coming to a ball, unless it's a family member, I don't see it.
And where did you?
I think the change
from back then.
HIV and AIDS. Once 1985 came, a lot of people wanted to veer away from anything gay because it was like we were stigmatized as AIDS being a gay disease. But what I want to point out is that when I talk about William calling me legendary and me not using the term until 1989 at my Tracks Ball, nobody cared about whether you were a legend. Nobody cared. And we didn't even have the word icon. You know what I'm saying? We didn't even call ourselves pioneer. Like I said, if you hit the floor, there goes Paris Dupree. There goes Avis Pendarvis. There goes La Duchess Wong. There goes Angie Extravaganza, Angie Infinity. There goes Ross Infinity. We hit the floor, Robbie St. Laurent, Octavia St. Laurent. We hit the floor, Margot Princess, Richard Ebony, Larry Ebony. Everybody, their name was all that was needed. And things were better. Not only that, we walked for trophies. We only had grand prizes at the ball.
Do you think
the money
has killed?
The money has come into play where, in competitions, whether it be sports, whether it be music industry or whatever, like even the people in the music industry that have been exploited, they have, made money for the music companies and the producers. And in order for them to make money, they had to, how can I put this? They had to give concerts. Now, just like in the sports, the coaches, the owners of the team, they make lots of money. They also decide who plays. You're not gonna play this game. You're gonna sit out or keep you on the bench. In the ballroom community, when we used to fight, argue, fuss, and vie for trophies, it was fun. And that trophy was everything. And as a matter of fact, our most favorite thing on the awards ball, like in 1985 was the first awards ball, was given by Harold Chanel. Then in 86, it was not Jared Princess, it was Hakeem Jordan. And then we didn't have another awards ball until from 1986. I think the next awards ball was when Jack and Andre did it. But again, let's not forget, Richard Ebony started the Hall of Fame in 1984. Right. I just feel like the status thing now is like everybody's an icon. The whole United States is an icon. What I'd like to know at one time when I was coming up, I received my icon status in 1997. So it took me 1984 as a legend and being legendary all the way to 1997 before I was an icon. I was in the Hall of Fame in 84, 1995, but I wasn't an icon until 1997. And what it meant to me back then was supposed to be, I thought you were supposed to have 20 years in ballroom, you were supposed to have community service, and you're supposed to have a certain amount of trophies. Well, none of that seems to be the definition of an icon in today in 2021.
You know what I think it is? I think it's there. I don't think there's any like in stone writing of like this is the criteria that you need to do this. So regionally, you have different people. Maybe not even regionally, just from person to person.
Well, I'm going to give you a story because basically there was some write-ups, and I remember who came to me and for my advice and wrote something in the Ballroom History 101, which was Jamal Milan. He wrote what the definition of icon and legendary, and to be a lifetime achiever, it was 25 years. But still, you had to have not just the years, you had to have the accolades. These kids today don't have the resumes that we had in order to become an icon. They just don't have it. I'm not saying if this is the new world, if this is the new way they accept things, then that's how they accept it. But we gave just a lot more of ourselves. And we put our resumes together, and there was a department store in New York, and I know you've heard of it, called Barney's. And the commercial would say, we do it the old-fashioned way, we earned it. And that's what we in the pioneering era did, we earned it. We're not saying people didn't get out here and walk or what, but you have a lot of people, like I even made a statement without throwing shade, like to me. I think Jack Mizrahi, I remember when I met Jack is a very, very, very good MC. He's really good. But to me, he's not an icon. He's not. And that's only because I don't know how many trophies Jack doesn't have. But I know one thing, he has not given back to the community the way that, say, me or Junior or whatever. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. We did what we did because we lost our friends.
So for icon status, you specifically want to see people be like philanthropists. Like you want to see them give back to the community, like monetarily, or just
like, look, when I say I've done the first AIDS fundraiser in New York was in 1989. It was called the Love Ball. It was underneath the umbrella of the Design Industry Foundation for AIDS. Madonna, Jean Paul Gaultier, Queen Latifah. I sat with these people. I sat on the judges panel with Carla Fendi. She was the last of the Fendi sisters. Her sisters had died. And I'm sitting there with Carla. I'm talking to Pee Wee Herman. I get to meet Bob Mackey that sold Diana Ross's gowns. I was with these people. I'm not throwing names around. And at the end of 1989 and the combination of Love Ball 2, which was done the year after that in 1991, we raised a total of $3.5 million for AIDS. We opened up 2 apartment buildings in Harlem for homeless people with HIV and AIDS. Ballroom, specifically Ballroom, we opened up 2 apartment buildings, big buildings, and we put people in there that were homeless. We did something for our friends. That was 1989, 1991. In 1990, I did a fundraiser at the House of Omni with Spike Lee at Club Palladium on 14th Street. It was called the Grandest Grand March Ever. We were involved in an auction. The House of Omni, Brian Omni, who's an artist, he paints and stuff, Brian Branch. And he, you know, and Derek Omni, who's a designer, actually created a mask. And we were at this gallery in Soho called the Dianson Gallery. And the masks were all on the walls. The LeBeiges were part of it. Marcel Christian did the Christian and Princess mask, and the Omni mask. And all these people were in there, you know, with their glasses. And there was a auction going on. And this woman looked at our mask from the House of Omni, and she snubbed it. She put her nose up. Her name was Lillian Montevecchi. She was the #1 art critic in New York City. I went outside and sat on the side of the gallery and cried because I felt like all of my friends, like she snubbed us. We go back inside, it's a good story. Go back inside, Chichi Valente gets the gavel. She says, I want everybody to know that the first mask tonight that was sold by the House of Omni. Now this person, Miss Lillian, comes over and she's like, oh. And our mask was bought by a law firm, husband and wife, Malamed and Malamed. They paid like $1,000 for our mask that only cost us $26 to make. So we raised $1,000 for AIDS. But when she did that and she looked like as if to say, oh, you're one of the designers, and I gave her the same snub that she gave me with a first, now we can go home. You know, we made the daily newspaper for the fundraiser. I got a beautiful 5x10 picture of myself with my Omni members in the Daily News. I felt so proud to have done something for the ballroom community. So now, while that was going on, I wasn't just doing HIV and AIDS, I was doing fundraisers for the hospital where the kids, St. Jude's Hospital, so the kids that don't have money go, they got cancer. I also did some fundraisers for Sloan Memorial Kettering Cancer Hospital. I have always given back to not just the ball community, but to the communities. When I was going to Bloomfield College, which is right over here, I went from 2000, I went back to school at the age of 52. And yeah, and I was working on the weekends at the YMCA in Newark on Broad Street. And I was playing with the kids that were 5, 6, 7, and 8 years old, right? Drawing pictures, making little clay things, and you know, and they used to love to play musical chairs, and they used to like to knock me out of my chair on the floor. They got the biggest thrill out of that. But I've done that. I've worked at the food banks. I've given, you know, help go to the big food banks and prepare the boxes that go to the pantries. Right. And I've done all that, and I work for Covenant House with the Runaways. You know, so I've given back. You know what I'm saying? And that's not even.
You see everybody else get back.
Yeah, just like the humanitarian. If we could just have that instead of the cutthroatness, you know. And then you wonder why kids. You know, it's all about, oh, I'm an icon. I'm this. I'm that. You know, I can look and say that I really don't care what your status is, because I don't need to know what you did to get that status, because a lot of people got status from hanging out with their girlfriends or doing drugs with their girlfriend or whatever the case may be. It's not for me to sit up here and be analytical or care. What I do care about is if you could find some kind of humanity or be a humanitarian or, you know, show somebody, uplift somebody. Like I would push the Omnis, and the Omnis scream at me and would always say this, you push us too hard. I would make them go to school, this, that, and other. I said, in order to be an Omni, you had to have a job or an education, but you had to, more than that, you had to have a personality. If you didn't have a personality, I didn't care if you had a job or education. I wanted you out, or you weren't getting in. Teaching those values came from me having a mother who stood beside me, that, you know, went to my balls, that my sisters went to my balls, my brother, you know, that family support, that nurturing is what I tried to give people in the ballroom, not just Omni. Yeah. And back then, we didn't just make it separate, like Omni or Ebony or whatever. We were all at each other's barbecues. We were all running through the village, play fighting. Richard was very, very heavy. And Richard was very, very heavy, okay? Richard was a big boy. And I would walk down the street with him. I said, Richard, you know what they say about us? He said, about who? I said, about me and you. I said, every time we walk down the street and it's me and you, they said that we look like the number 10. And then I said, you know what else they said, Richard? He said, Richard said, you know I'm gonna get you, right? I said, Richard, they say every time that you wear a leather suit, there's no more cows left in New Jersey. These were the jokes we used to make. And Richard would, like, I used to wear the pencil wave hairstyle for years. And so we're in the village and they'd wait till we passed a fruit stand and Richard would go get some watermelon, snatch it, don't pay for it, just to fuck me up. I mean, I'd have cherries all up in my waves. I'd have peaches. We had so much fun. We would go down to the pier. We had our music. The children be voguing. Miss Pepper would go get Kevin Omni, because Pepper used to like to mess with me. So I would go in there, well, what do you want, Miss Pepper? She said, Kevin Omni, what's going on with this bus ride that's coming up given by Roger and Terry Omni? I said, what did you just say? I said, the names on the flyer. I said, what, Roger and Terry? Why are you calling me Miss Pepper? Miss Pepper, why are you bothering me? Are you going? Because I'm going, but I'm going in a car. I'm not getting on the bus. So, Miss Pepper, I have no need to be here. Is there anything else you'd like to ask me? And me and Miss Pepper will hug each other and laugh. We had such a different attitude with one another. Now, I'll tell you, some of the kids today I want to give a shout out to. The House of Demure Versailles. They're always coming on my page, clicking like, showing me love, saying thank you, and I support them. Yeah. Every time I see something, I react to it. I give them a heart, some love. And you can tell how some of the children today think. It's like the selfishness. I think Ballroom of today has a lot more selfishness than it did when we came up. It's like everybody's to themselves, for themselves. It's like the Ballmans. I support them. And I gave in 2020, I gave the online Omni categories, we gave 7. And we gave them $200 each time they won. And, I even had one event, I had to extend it. And the child I won't mention the child's name, but the child got mad and said, oh, that's what's wrong with you producers. You want to extend stuff. You gave a deadline, now you're changing it. And I have to look at the camera and do like this. You're not paying $30. You're not paying $35. I'm not asking you for table money or nothing. I'm giving you a chance to win $200 by just going online. And you're telling me what I can and cannot do? Instead of saying thank you for even doing it? Sometimes we look for thank yous. This is why a lot of the pioneers don't get involved in the balls.
It might be because, too, you gotta think, like, some people weren't raised the same way, so they might not have.
You know what? I'm glad you said it. I'm glad you said it.
Older people, you know what I mean? That's real, like, because, normally it's your mother and your father that teaches you how to speak to people that are older than you, how to speak to, even when you're a child, how to speak to adults, how to speak to elderly people,
And that's what's missing in the ballroom community. Let me tell you something. I just said this. You got Chinese people, they honor their parents. They honor their grandparents. Their grandparents are everything. Spanish people do the same thing. I have to give it to them. But what is wrong, now listen to me carefully how I'm defining this. What is wrong with the black gay ballroom? Not black gay community. Black gay ballroom children. Is there anybody, did we lose something as far as parenting?
I think it's it's internalized self-hate for a lot of people, or why a lot of people are so negative towards their own people, because you got to think about it. When you're raised, like you said, ever since the AIDS epidemic, everybody is like, gay people are like the worst. I mean, the worst of the worst. So when you grow up learning, like, gay people are the worst of the worst, and then you realize, hey, I'm a part of these people. It's like we kind of sometimes will, and I say we only, I don't do it, but I'm just gonna say we will be a little bit more disrespectful and dismissive. Sometimes not even just to gay people, but to black people in general. And there may be some effects from slavery from it.
Oh, no. There is definitely effects from slavery, because something, let's just say a scenario real quick. Men or women had to watch their daughters get raped in front of them. They had to watch their sons, and then the sons had to watch their dads getting raped. So there is I don't know what the answer for that is. But it's instilled.
That's why I asked you, like, do you even think it's possible for a heterosexual black man to be at a ball? Because the average heterosexual black man is so homophobic.
Well, now, you know what? After that AIDS epidemic went, and then now the thing is that there's a whole new scenario coming behind this. There was always a desperation involved. But let's just say I lost over 600 friends. And I wanted to tell you this at the beginning, and I kept getting off topic. Do you know, okay, we talked about The Queen, the movie in 1968. Do you know the very first ball that was ever videotaped? It's called TV Transvestite. Okay, it's called TV Transvestite. Okay. It was in 1982, August. Okay? The ball that it filmed around was Harlem Fantasy Part 2. Doreen Corey and Pepper LaBeija. Matter of fact, Pepper's the MC. Matter of fact, it's 1982 and Pepper says, "What am I in the house, Crystal?" And she's the Empress. She became the mother at my ball. Miss Pepper became the mother at my ball in October 1983. Okay? Now, getting back to that ball, do you know I'm in that ball? And I'm walking, and I'm serving it, over 16 people. And I walked Butch Queen first time in drag. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that about me. Yeah, I won the first Realness Trophy in 1982 at the House of Ebony, and I won Butch Queen in drag in August of 82. And I'm gonna tell you how fierce it was to my story. Just like I said, Tennille Reed Dupree was the only femme queen to walk face as a Butch Queen and win, and face as a femme queen. I'm the only Butch Queen that walked Best Dressed Man. I'm giving you heterosexual. Then my next category was Butch Queen first time in drag. No. Yeah, Butch Queen first time in drag. And then my next category is realness.
So a lot of times in today's day,
but did you hear the order?
Yeah, like you could.
I went from a man to a girl, women, back to realness.
Yeah, back to it. Yeah. So do you think, like, cause like today now, let's say if you have somebody that walks sex siren, but they can Vogue really good, their house leaders will tell them, you don't Vogue at all. Your category is this. So like today in Ballroom, it's really about like learning how to brand yourself and brand your talent. So a lot of times there are a few people who walk whatever and they are successful at it, but for the most part, it's known that you kind of stick to one thing or stick in the same lane.
Well, let me tell you something. When I walked realness, right, at the Ebony Ball and won grand prize, let me tell you, I have to tell you, Miss Crystal LaBeija gagged. They told her, you know, he just won Butch Queen in drag. She said, if I would have known that, he would have never got realness. And I kikied because I fooled her, all right, if that's what you want to call it. And she was an expert on being feminine or masculine, all right? Now, the reason why I also mentioned that film, this is more important than the fact that I walk. And in case anybody wants to know, I'm wearing the blue lame gown with the splits and the silver pumps, and my titties were balloons. And I had.
And you still got video? Is there still video of this out there?
Yeah, TV Transvestite. It's all, you can Google it. Okay. And I have on Puerto Rican hair. I have lots of hair. Okay. And I'm wearing a very famous lipstick that only the House of Princess taught me. Cherries in the Snow by Ultima 2, red, because red went with yellow. If you had yellow skin, Margot Princess and DeRay were yellow, they wore cherries in the snow. But that's not the most important part I'm telling you about this film. The most important part about this film is out of the 300 people that you see serving, there's a famous person on there that walks Best Dressed Woman. Her name was Shemeka Ebony. She's wearing a gold dress. She's a heterosexual woman, you know, because we have Best Dressed Female, Best Dressed Male. Right. She's the one, she was Nicky Barnes' wife, the drug dealer. She's the one that got killed. She's in the film. But when you go to that film, at the end of the film where the credits are, when it comes down to Butch Queen First Time in Drag, because they have it separated like Best Man, this, that, and Butch Queen First Time in Drag, it says Kevin from Brooklyn, because they didn't get my name, Queen Asia. All right? So just in case nobody gets confused, it's Kevin from Brooklyn. But that's not even the most important part of this story. The most important part of this story, that out of the 300 people that's there in the film, it's only 12 of us left.
300?
Now, do you see the impact of AIDS?
God damn.
There's only 12 of us left. And I tell you who the 12 are. Tracy Africa, David Ultima, Erskine Christian, Terry Chanel, Makuta Versace Chanel, R.R. Chanel, hold on, I'm trying to go there in my mind. There's somebody I'm forgetting that wasn't even at the book. Oh, John Moschino, Infinity. Would you believe that I only counted 7 of us alive? Sad. Yeah. I'm sure there's 12, but Duchess wasn't there, but she's from that era. So, yeah, there's about 12 of us alive out of 300 in the first film ever.
So I mean, that's.
Isn't that devastating?
It is. I don't even.
Do you know how? Do you know how? And not only can you Google it, I wish that I had. I'll make a way. Me and you will have to stay in contact, and I'll make sure that you get some footage and stuff. Okay. Because I do have a copy of it on DVD. I believe I have an extra copy. But if I don't, you're going to Queens, right?
Yes.
Wolfgang is in Queens. You can go to his house and get a copy of it. Okay. He's in Corona. Okay. Where you at?
Long Island City.
7 train.
Okay.
You could take it to his stop.
Yeah.
And you would want to, that way you could have it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I look at that film, which is very rare, it's like, it gets me emotional.
Yeah.
All of my friends are dead.
Yeah.
Now, here we go with the dead part and the understanding, like you and I were talking before we got on film about the Paris is Burning and Jenny Livingston. Yeah. I'm gonna do this professionally. Jenny had everybody in the ballroom fooled because what she was filming, she would come to the balls and pay the ballroom person $200 to film inside their ball. And because a lot of the children, remember this is a disenfranchised community, a lot of the children weren't working 9 to 5s. I came from Wall Street, I came from a community college, I came from a family of total support, but many didn't have that. And so therefore, with her offering them $200 back then, it was a lot of money. And so when they offered her, when they took the money, they signed a release, not knowing they were signing their rights away, because she was pushing the fact that she was doing it as a thesis, because she was in NYU, and she was doing this for her college thesis. A lot of people didn't know that it was going to turn into a film / documentary.
I think I did hear that story.
So she received $3.5 million from Miramax Film, which to this date, Miramax Film has made over $300 million. And my friends like Avis, remember I said, don't just throw names around. These are people who, Avis made my mother curtains. Avis sewed and made my mother a comforter. Paris and I shared 3-piece dinners together. Right. Me and Pepper, I went with her to the doctors for her foot problems, okay? My friends died. $1,200 they got. They got $1,200, all of them. And she made $3.5 million. Now, hold on. The only one that got more than that, there's only one person. It was Octavia. Octavia got $7,500. Why did she get $7,500? Because Octavia sued her and she didn't sign the release. Why isn't Kevin Omni in the film? Okay. I didn't sign the release because my brother, being an attorney, my older sister just retired from her law firm 3 years ago, 50 years in the same law firm. And my younger sister worked for her law firm for 27 years. And my brother-in-law is an attorney. So, you know, and then again, I was in honors English in high school. I was in special progress classes in middle school, junior high. And I was in intellectually gifted classes when I was in public school. I read the fine lines, those little small things or what have you. Yeah. And all of a sudden, Paris is Burning pops up and released in 1991. And here they got their pictures all over the place. They even try to put them on shows like Phil Donahue, stuff like that. And, you know, people were calling up saying, you know, y'all are all drug addicts. There was like, you know, like Octavia, there's a video footage of her talking about, it's called The Dark Side of Paris is Burning. And she says, I don't know why everybody's going up for that film. I don't like that film. That film is horrible. Then you got Marcel reading Jenny. He was the grandfather of the Ballroom. Marcel, let me tell you what Marcel did. Marcel might as well say he gave 100 balls. You want to know why? He sponsored 100 categories throughout the years. Oh, he sponsored some of the Omni balls. He gave $400 for a human trophy. So Miss Vanity Legend stood up on this big thing with some angel wings and pretended to be a trophy, but she won the 400. We have a lot of people that have done more and went above and beyond to help the ballroom grow. Only like when it comes to Larry's Lives, they were upset and they had to take it down because he was so angry that, you know, he said some things that he could have been sued or he could have been arrested, you know, in regards to pose and things like that. But what he was saying was that...
Why would he be sued?
Because he said things like how he felt about Billy Porter.
Okay,
and
maybe I need to watch it.
Oh no, they took it down. Okay. He had to take it down or he was going to jail. He said what he was going to do to Billy Porter if he ever saw him. Oh yeah, it was that fierce. But that was anger. That was anger and upsetment coming from him. And it was because of, do I agree with him? I agree with the fact that...
Wait, what did he say before you say you agree? He said he wanted to basically harm Billy Porter because of pose, because of what reason?
He called Billy Porter a clown, and he was wearing clown outfits, and he didn't like the way he was representing the ballroom children on pose, and that he never came to a ball, and he never contributed to a ball or act like he was a part of this community to sit up there as an actor and portray us. And then Larry went on to say, if I saw you, I would beat you and then turn around and you.
Oh, okay.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
And he was very upset. And then he also said how he felt about Jack.
Yeah, okay.
And, you know, he you know, not putting, like I told you, Jack is a good MC, very good MC. And you know what? Matter of fact, Jack's birthday's tomorrow. May 28th, because my sister's birthday and his birthday the same day.
My mama's birthday.
Yeah, May 28th. My baby sister's at my house now. So he felt like with Jack, like you kept a lot of the pioneers from being a part of Pose. And it's like you try to erase the pioneers, but we're still alive. See, so many people in the ballroom, oh, Miss Avis, oh, Miss Dorian, oh, Miss Pepper, oh, Miss Angie. There's pioneers still here, like me.
Well, that's why I'm glad
like
we have opportunities like this that we could sit down and hear y'all.
And like I said, you know, my thing is Larry was saying, but I always say, later for what Larry said, I always say, you got to come back to us anyway. Yeah. Because what you're doing on TV, I'm not mad at. I'm glad. Listen, if you can do it, do it. Right. However, don't you think that something should come back to the community? Now, let me go back to something important why I brought up the film TV channel.
So what specifically, what more do you want to see Jack bring?
Well, put it like this. Larry's point was, You didn't want none of the pioneers to be a part of the polls because we would outshine you. All right? Now, because we have the history and we have the knowledge, you came in the balls in the 90s. Okay? We've been here since the 70s. It's the simple mathematics. All right? But you asked me what do I feel could come back to the community? Great question. The movie TV Transvestite is the very first ball ever filmed of Harlem Fantasy, Pepper and Dorian, August 1982. So 30 years later, in 2012, the directors of that film, his name is Michele and Simone. They're from Italy. They're the ones who created and filmed. They're the directors. They gave a 30-year anniversary to screen the film because nobody hardly ever had a copy. Only very select people like me and Pepper. Okay? Do you know what they did the end of the night? Well, first of all, they had me host it. But at the end of the night, I got to tell you what a glorious thing they did. They came to me because they knew that I had a feeling that I wanted to do this and they wanted to help me out. They gave me a big check to start the Kevin Omni Burris, that's my name, funeral fund for the Ballroom community. If you go to my website, www.iconkevinomni.com, again, iconkevinomni.com, you'll see I have the Kevin Omni Burris funeral/burial fund, and it's for the Ball community. There's 6 people or 7 that I've already given money to help them with their funeral. Because every time somebody passed away in the community, they didn't have family, they didn't have no insurance, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. So now after this money that I received that we're giving, can't pay for the whole funeral, but we can give you something towards it. And I'm asking the Ballroom community, and I'm asking them now too on your YouTube, to send $5. And I said, what if everybody in the Ballroom community, 4,000 people, sent $5? You know how much money that would be? And I want to remind them that I've been asking since 2012. This is 2021. I can only name, I'm gonna give a shout out to Dwight Princess in Atlanta, shout out to Stuart Ebony in Atlanta. Why, you ask? And Rashid, because they're the only ones in the Ballroom community that gave any money. Oh, excuse me, I'm telling a lie. They're the only ones next to the house of Omni that gave any money to the Ballroom community. Now I want to make this clear. When I turned 40 in 1998, I gave a mini ball at the clubhouse, 28th Street. And I got money from Vibe magazine because I was working for Vibe magazine. I was describing the photos with my friend, I forgot his name, but anyway, I used to do, put descriptions on pictures like Red and Method Man, like, you know, things like, oh, they look a little too close tonight, don't you think? You know, stuff like that. And they gave me money to give out at my 40th birthday. And I told everybody, I said, you know, y'all kids don't listen to nothing. I'm trying to tell y'all about life and none of y'all don't even know about life. Let me explain something. When I die, I can honestly say my mother won't have to ask nobody for nothing, not even the house of Omni, okay? I have 2 burial insurances. I have my life insurance, I have 2 of them. So that was in 98. So when I did the 2012 burial thing, after money started going out, I'm not gonna mention this person's name, she called me because somebody died in Boston and she needed some money and I sent it. Well, Wolfgang Bush, who is the director of How Do I Look film, I'm the assistant director producer. Wolfgang Bush writes all the checks for the burial fund. So, you know, if they come to me and I approve it, I tell them to write a check. The same person that asked me for money for this child in Boston had another friend that died and got in contact with me again. And I'm like, couldn't you have at least, since you have the power to be, you know, to ask people on the microphone, couldn't you ask them why don't they contribute $5 to the burial fund? But you're coming to me on a second time now. And there's other people across the United States that need help.
Yeah.
So I got to the point within the last, let's see, 2018 to now, that I don't even ask the kids anymore. You know, some of them don't even know that the burial fund is still in effect. It is. But it doesn't have that much money in it. But whatever's in it, if somebody needs it to help with a funeral or service, by all means, we'll give it. But it would be nice to be able to be asked for money and not have to say no, because we don't have it. And that's one thing that bugs me out about the burial fund. And it all stemmed from the two producers who filmed the first Ballroom video, which is TV Transvestite. Now, when I say giving back to the community, that's what I'm talking about. That's giving back to the community. Because I don't need the help. I got my insurance. I'm well. I even got my plot where I'm going, which is right on top of my mama. You know what I'm saying? So, and I look at these kids today, they walk around and it's like, okay, Vogue Femme, this, that, and other, and they go out that door. Are they okay? You know, is this what the parents of Ballroom, like you said, I had the nurturing, I gave that nurturing to Omni. Richard and Larry gave that nurturing to the Ebonies. We have passed on and shared our nurturing and our education and our history and our story. And we have to compete with everybody who's an icon now. We also have to compete with know your history, learn your history. But y'all don't know the history. Why should I have to always come in and say that's not how it went?
Because honestly, like, how will we know? You know, like, I feel like Ballroom history is...
It's twisted.
It's not only twisted, but it's been...
Well,
it hasn't been recorded properly.
Truly. And let me tell you something, too. Now, I'm going to call names, and I'm not going to be insulting. Okay. And this has nothing to do with animosity. Okay. When there was a Ballroom museum, I think that Niambi started. I didn't get a chance to, when I looked at it for a hot second, and then I came away from it. And she had pictures of, I believe, Erskine and Michael Princess and Junior, I believe. And she had excluded Omni. Omni wasn't there. And my point to that is, you can't erase me from history because I am history, you know? So I don't feel any kind of way, but how are you going to tell people to call your museum, know your history, when you don't know it? It comes from New York. You're a Philadelphia child. And you're again, when I say people throwing pictures around and names around, but you don't know these people. You don't know what they went through. You don't know why Paris moved from Philadelphia to Brooklyn. You don't know what she went through. You don't know anything about them.
That's why you need to step in and say it.
That's what I'm saying.
Because if nobody else say it, we're going to say it.
I'm saying it. And then I'm going to say, too, that like I said, even with Legend Statements and Stars with Kenny was a very close friend to me. Kenny was everything to me. Me and the Ebony's always been tight like that. But Kenny, I had Kenny host one of my balls the next year after I started Legend Statements and Stars in '89. I let him host my ball in 1990 at the Red Zone, which I have it on video. And he's saying, and everybody here at a night of Legend Statements and Stars. He knew it was already thing by me. I don't have nothing against you calling people out in 1993 to give people something to do before the ball gets started. But when it comes to what I came out my mind with, I want my accreditation. That was what I came out with. Just like Paris was April in Paris, when she gave her first, I was Kevin Omni Presents. Then it became a Night of Legend Statements and Stars. Then it came Paris' Birthday Part 1, 2, 3, all the way to Part 14. Just like me, all the way to Part 10. And then the Lifetime Achievers, Icons, Statements and Status, Part 1 to Part 5. That's who I am. You know, you don't need to take that away from me. But I also said, with a little class, like they have a group that Andre started called Learning Your History. My thing is, it's nothing wrong with it. But just remember, history is more than pictures and names. Like you're talking about the 5 mothers. There were more mothers than that contributed to Ballroom. J.D.R. was a fantastic mother as a butch queen. Richard Ebony too. So was Rhonda Plenty from the House of Plenty in Brooklyn. They just erased Rhonda, but Rhonda wore grand prize all the time. She was a Dorian and an Avis. A lot of kids don't know that because they don't include everybody. They just wanted to be Angie. And Angie didn't come to the balls. Hold on. Let me tell you something. Angie came to the balls in 1984. I was there when Angie came. She came in 84.
But those are just the people that they like resonated with her.
Yeah, but still, you got to remember, like, I would say, don't tell part of the story. Tell the whole story. Yeah. You know, and J.D.R.'s, his femme queens, Sharonda, Campy, Kim, and Robin, them girls sealed it on the runway. Ball after ball after ball after ball. Rhonda Plenty, the mother of the House of Plenty, Candy was her right hand person. Are we okay? Yeah, we good. Candy was, Rhonda was walking balls after balls and she was battling for grand prize all the time. And then you had Miss Consuela. Miss Consuela was from LA. This woman, this femme queen, she reminded you of Dorian. You had to look twice to make sure you didn't make a mistake. Right. She'd come in the ballroom, sit in the back of the Mark Ballroom, right? With a vanity dresser that she done bought from California, did an abracadabra mirror with lights. Are you ready for that? Mirror with lights, doing her makeup and her outfits in the back. And we'd be like, all right, Miss Consuela. And she go, darling, I'm here. You know? Yeah. And then we had some precious people in the 70s and early 80s that nobody likes to talk about, like Miss Sugar. Miss Sugar was, listen, when you see that movie, TV transvestite, Miss Peppers and everybody's, Miss Sugar, come on, Miss Sugar. Miss Sugar is painting her face from the beginning of the film to the end. And she's gorgeous. And she does this little thing at the end where she's sitting up by the water like this on 125th Street in this gown, and it's giving you very Don't Cry For Me Argentina. She's giving you Broadway. And she gives you the perfect profile from Don't Cry For Me Argentina. Just like Paris Dupree did something fab like that, La Cage aux Folles. Right. She came out and she did I Am Changing. Right. And at the end, when she came out in the gown and she says, I am changing, you gotta accept me for who I am. She's wiping the makeup off her face. She's coming out of the drag and she pulls the pants down from under the gown and she turns into a butch queen. It was over. That was a grand prize category. We had femme queens like Miss Marta, they were Puerto Rican, Miss Taxi, Miss Tiny, Miss Venus. We had some lovely, lovely Hispanic children coming to the balls like in 79, 80, 81, 82. They kind of like fell off around, I would say 82, 83. You had Raquel Extravaganza, you had Carmen Extravaganza, and then you got Miss Angie in 1984. But before those girls, the girls like Miss Marta, Miss Taxi, Miss Sugar, those were babes. And they just like, a lot of them, well, to be honest with you, all of them died. I'm telling you, out of that film, out of 300 people, there's only 12 of us left. And, you know, my word for Miss Niambi is nothing more than, there's nothing wrong with having a museum, but get the story, sit down and talk to other people. You know what I'm saying? It has to be more than, because if I was to ask Niambi, well, how many trophies do you think Junior has? How many trophies do you think Erskine has? Then are you going to be able to tell that story? Or better yet, what month was Erskine born? What colors he liked to wear the most? What kind of food he liked?
I understand what you're saying. I like what she's doing, but I can see where you say you want
yeah,
to have a more well-rounded
she's from Philadelphia
view of
and you know what? If we're going to talk about the balls and the house structure balls, we have no choice but to understand the pioneering era that started it all. There was no, you know, there was one category in 1977 for butch queens. It was called Butch Mod Face. It was a trilogy category. You had to have Model's Effect, Face, and Realness all together. And Erskine could tell you that because he won it. You know?
So what is one, because we gotta get out here soon, what is one thing that you could tell the new generation coming up? Because as we talked about you discussed a lot of things that could be or should be different.
One thing that I would love to tell the new generation is, first of all, I admire all you guys. Secondly, don't worry about status so much. Worry about having love for one another to the point where I got to give a shout out to recently there was an event, I believe it was a barbecue in New York, New Jersey. Did you hear about it? Well, it was like yesterday or the day before. And the houses from New York and New Jersey all went to this barbecue to get familiar with one another because they wanted to get together outside of Ballroom. But be Ballroom, but outside of Ballroom. And all the houses, that's how we did back in the 70s and the early 80s on the pier. It wasn't because you was an Omni, you had to stay with the Omnis. Omni, Ebony, Pendarvis, LaBeija, Dupree, Christian, Princess, we all were together. So my point to everybody now is stop taking the fun. To me, it's taking the fun where everybody's got to be so, oh, I'm an icon, oh, I'm a legend. You are who you are, baby. And if you got talent and creativity, that's all that's necessary. You know what, even though I could be, pioneer, icon, Kevin Omni, I'm just Kevin Omni. And if you really want to know something, my friends call me Kevin. They don't even call me Kevin Omni. You know what I'm saying? When you sit down and break bread with people and you eat and you do things like go to the beach and stuff like that, it doesn't have to be only icons are going. Only, because we all could get very, well, I got a table and you can't sit at my table. But my mother never taught me that. My grandmother taught me I feed my enemies. We have to help each other. And AIDS crisis should have taught us one thing. But if they didn't teach us nothing, this pandemic should really be teaching us. And I know a lot of people can't cope. There's a lot of people in Ballroom that need help. This crystal meth thing, the crack, whatever drug you're doing, because people can't cope with reality. There's over 500,000 people dead. There's a void. There's a big void in the world right now, especially in the United States. Our government, our Republicans are telling us we don't care about you. We got a president who's trying to be patient and be bipartisan. When I feel like I like Biden, I voted for Biden, I'm proud of him, but I find him to be sometimes a little bit not where he should be. It's something, I'm not talking about dementia or Alzheimer's. I'm like, the Republicans are not gonna agree with your infrastructure. The Republicans are gonna be against you all the time. So then get rid of this filibuster. And it's not the government that we don't want to hear about. When politics comes on, we turn off the TV. But it's that same politics that depresses you that makes you run out there and do drugs. And all of our friends, just this weekend past, Goldie Ebony, who was from the pioneering era, who was Realness, who was Best Dressed Man, who wore fur coats, who kept gold teeth in his mouth, just was found dead in his apartment for 2 weeks. A moment of silence for him, a moment of silence for the guy that just died, and he was a famous dancer, and I forgot his name, in all the gay clubs, all the black gay clubs, all the way from the 80s, all the way up until the year before last, he just died. We're losing people left and right and left and right. So please, icon this. Icon some love. Don't worry about, like I hear the children, the new icon, the new, baby, just give everybody praise. And if you stop making it so difficult that even the judges are going to be prejudiced because all they hear is the word new icon or icon, so they're not even giving the other person a chance because you've already set the stage for them to win. Right. I think what they need to do as far as status goes, I think status should be something that it's earned, but however, it shouldn't be the most important reason why you go to a ball. You're taking all the fun out of it.
I can understand that, and I definitely agree with that. I want to thank you for just, sharing your insight, your wisdom on the scene. I hope everybody watches this is inspired to not only do better but be better. Also, give back to the community, like you said.
Yeah, because that's how we keep it moving. And you want to know what? Because of the struggles that we went through in the pioneering era, is why we have a ball worldwide now. And if we didn't sell tickets and keep each other going at the beginning, then you wouldn't have even had this phenomenon.
Here we go.
Okay. Well, I'm even saying, like, even with me, like, and I tell people this, and if there has to be, well, Kev, like you asked me to give them some advice. My last piece of advice, as me being a pioneer, I'm proud to be a pioneer. Proud to be a pioneer that has invested in the community, who has given back to the community. I've invested over between awards in my life, from bowling to whatever, dancing, to whatever category I wore, which were many. I didn't just walk face, I wore realness, I wore butch and drag, I wore sinister eyes, I wore leather versus suede, I wore high fashion evening wear, high fashion exec, even one shopping down Fifth Avenue realness, okay? I've won a lot. But through all that, after having over 300 awards and trophies, and I can name them. How about that? I can name them. Like if somebody said, you got that many? And I'll give them the name of all of them, okay? And my bottom line is, it's not that you can't sit at my table because I have all these awards, but just look at me for who I am. Don't compare me to the next pioneer, because then you'll find that their resume may not be the same as mine.
Right. Yeah.
You know? And I'm proud to say that out of all of my ballroom career, I've given over 43 events. That includes mini ball deluxes, regular major balls, and what have you. And that's one of my contributions. So I'm glad to have met you though, Jay.
For real. I'm really glad that you got a chance to sit down here and like I said, I hope the new generation sees this and are inspired and are educated about you know, like where we come from and where all this came from. Even me doing a little bit of research, I was surprised to know about some of that, and even some of the stuff that you taught me today was new stuff that I learned on top of that information that I just that I previously received. So, like I said, I appreciate you just for even taking the time out. I feel like when we watch ball clips, we get so involved in the talent. We get so involved in the entertainment of it all.
And not knowing what goes on behind the scenes, or what's in somebody's life or their mind, or whatever.
That's the most beautiful part. Who these people really are. What these people actually go through. Like you said, you can name 300 people that was in that movie, but it's only less than a dozen of them that are still here. Just knowing that, we need to preserve our history. We need to cement our history before, you know, the mainstream continues to take ballroom and will change the history into
but you know what, capitalization, that's what I was talking about in regards to Jenny. I know Jenny. I know her. I'm not throwing her name around. I know her. I met her. She stopped me on the runway. Kevin, stop right there. Do you know how much footage she got of me? And I can imagine how pissed she is because I didn't sign the release. Yeah. She took so much footage of me. She took footage of me going to the judges panel, walking executive, everything. But I'm not mad at her. What I'd like to know, you know what would be nice? If she turned around and said, you know what, you got a burial fund? Here's $100,000 for the ballroom community for the burial fund. Something that simple. Give some money back so in case the kids die, we can help bury them. Yeah. You know? And then me being Kevin Omni, I love ballroom. I like to see the talents of today. I'm loving the new houses like, you know, Demir, Versailles, Garcon, and all of you guys. I watch y'all, you know, and I enjoy watching y'all. I don't really have a thing other than I just wish, like when they do this LSS, it's like, okay, let me go get a sandwich. Because now we got to hear who's the new icons and who's, you know, like, let's not take the fun away. And then everything is about $1 to the point where they're getting ridiculous. Now, you know what? I'll say this and then I'm going to shut up. When I gave my last ball, I made food for everybody. They didn't have to buy it. And I put it upstairs at the Pioneer Ball, June 2019. I spent money, and Mark Omni helped me, and we put food out. Because the vendor of the place, the owner, reneged on the kitchen and wanted to make money for himself. So I said, I'm gonna teach him. Okay. So I went and made some chicken wings, macaroni salad, garden salad, and had some lasagna going on. But that was then. Now for the status ball, part 5 was in 2016 at the YMCA. My VIP tables had cocktail shrimp platters and crabs from Chinatown. And I even bought the children nutcrackers, okay? I have never treated or mistreated people. When I did the 35th Omni anniversary, every time the chicken platter was empty, I went in the kitchen and came out and refilled it. So I had one instance, I'm not gonna mention that ball, people will remember it because I showed my behind, where I spent $350 on a table and got cheese and crackers. Okay. And my thing was, you don't even know if I'm lactose intolerant. So the point to it is, treat people right. Treat the children right. Since now everything is about $1, then give them their money's worth. Yeah. Give them their money's worth. And you know, I got my own opinions. Like I watched the Detroit Awards ball, and the person that won, grand prize $1,000, was that's my phone. Was from the house of Boguetta. That's probably my sister. No, it's not. It's somebody I don't know. But anyway, I don't know if it was a Boguetta. Whoever it was, I'm gonna tell you what they did. They called them to battle that last child, and that last child won. But by that time, that child was tired. He had battled 3 people. They didn't give him enough time to rest.
Right, I got you.
You know what I'm saying? It's like certain things you have to pay attention.
Describe yourself in 5 words or less.
Loving, humble, convinced, sincere, and prayerful.
What's up? Ladies and gentlemen, the icon, the pioneer, Kevin, Ultra Omni.
Oh, last thing. Remember, the pioneers are only before 1985. That means up to 1984, you are Ballroom overall pioneer. Hold on, it's important. Now also, people are calling themselves, I pioneered this in the Midwest, I pioneered this in Philadelphia, I pioneered this in California. You did not pioneer a scene that we already laid the foundations. You are a trailblazer, meaning you're copying off of what we started. The change of venue from Harlem to Midtown. I've pioneered the change from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. I pioneered the mini balls. The reason why I was glad and proud to be able to give a Midtown ball was not just to say, oh, you know, look at me. it opened the door for other people. It opened the door for Barbizon School of Models to come to the balls. It opened the door for black hair designers to come to the balls. They weren't coming to the balls at 5 a.m. in the morning. So I opened up a new audience for people in the media, magazines, editors, even people in the music industry.
And what do you think? Do you think ballroom is getting better or worse?
I think I'm going to try to say that ballroom of today is what the kids are, where the kids are at. To them, this is their ballroom. And I won't judge that. I won't judge that because just like when I went to my first ball and I went to my second, I became addicted. And that era and that atmosphere meant everything to me. But as things grow, as you grow up, just like you get just like if you grow up and you get a mustache and the next thing you know, you change and what have you. So it was like looking at today's ballroom, I think that the kids are talented still.
Right.
I think they're creative. Some of them I actually find very interesting. Some of the kids, I really do. I wish they knew more about their history.
Well, that's what we're doing this for.
Okay.
Because
like for instance, me and William Dupree, may he rest in peace, was the one who started Executive.
Oh wow. Executive Realness?
Executive Realness.
Wow.
It was just called High Fashion Exec. Then the next thing, after we battled so much, it became Traveling Exec. Then we got to the point where it became Legendary Exec. So I'm the first legendary executive in the ballroom.